This one is a little bit different. There seems to be a gap between the end of the 7-year tribulation and the beginning of the 1,000 millennial reign of Christ, especially the passage in Daniel. It means there's a 75-day interval between the tribulation and the millennial kingdom, and we're going to look at that today. So I'll run in about 28 minutes, so I can keep it in 30 minutes or less. By the way, this comes from 2 books. The End Times in Chronological Order and 40 Days through Revelation by Ron Rhodes. Good books. I got both of them. So, and I've adapted some of his ideas, and I've changed some of his ideas. So, let's do the overview first, and then we'll get in it. 4 points, an overview of weeks 1 through 69. In Daniel, there are 70 weeks. And we'll look over the weeks 1 through 69. Then secondly, we're going to look at the turning point of midway in the 70th week. At 3.5 years in the 7-year tribulation, there is a big point in history, and things will really change from then on. Number 3, where we get to 75 days, the break between in the 7-year tribulation and beginning of the 1,000-year millennial reign. Then number 4, events that may take place in these 75 days. So we're Revelation 19:21, second coming of Jesus. That is the end of the 7-year tribulation. And in Revelation 24, we really see the beginning of the 1,000-year reign of Jesus Christ. So the 7-year tribulation is the 70th week of Daniel's 70 weeks. But we're going to look at an overview of the first 69 weeks and go to Daniel 9:24 through 26. "70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision of prophecy, and anoint the most holy. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince, the Romans, that's the people of the prince is the Antichrist. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. And the end thereof shall be with a flood to the end of the war desolations are determined." So in Daniel there are 70 weeks, and we learn that a week actually represents 7 years. The whole 70 years deals with, and it tells us here, I'm doing a summary, the 70 weeks deals with Jerusalem, the holy city, and his people, the Jews. And the purpose of the 70 weeks is to end sins, reconcile for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness. That's what Jesus did. He dealt with sin, and that we could have forgiveness of sin, and eventually lead to everlasting righteousness. Not only the 1,000-year reign of Jesus, but beyond that into eternity. After 69 weeks, Messiah is cut off. Jesus is crucified. And then you have a long break between Jesus dying and the 70th week. Why? Because that's the church age. The 7-year tribulation is about the salvation of the Jewish nation, not the church. Why the break? Because we're in the church age. When the rapture occurs, the church age is over. We are out of this world, and then God will begin to deal with Israel. Number 2, midway in the 70th week, that is the turning point. Daniel 9:27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even to the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. The event that begins the 7-year tribulation is not the rapture. Now that precedes it is not the rapture. It is confirming the covenant, and I understand the Hebrew word means to make a greater covenant. The Antichrist will make a greater covenant for 1 week, that's 7 years. So obviously in this, it means the Jewish temple will be allowed to be rebuilt. And I believe I'm correct in saying that the Temple Mount is not under control of the Jews, but by Jordan, or some organization in Jordan. So, and the Muslims, they have their building up there. So the Jews already have materials to build the kingdom. They already have implements to do the temple service. They already have priests ordained. And the last I heard, they still had red heifer calves that could be slaughtered and burned for the purifying that they need. It's ready to go. All you have to have is agreements, covenants. And the Antichrist will make that covenant, and so the temple will be rebuilt. And you're going to have sacrifices. Oblation just means offering. But midway, the Antichrist will break his agreement and will stop sacrifices and offerings in the temple. And let's look at some other scriptures that really gives details. 2 Thessalonians 2:4. And it's about the Antichrist. I believe here calls him the man of lawlessness, who opposeth and exalted himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he is God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. 3.5 years, midway. Now, I also believe that 3.5 years will be when the 2 witnesses are killed, and then he has no restraints. The charge is already gone. The 2 witnesses are restrained. But when they're out of the way, he can take off his mask and reveal that he is not the Messiah of Israel. He is the Antichrist. And he will sit in the temple and say, "Look at me, God. Worship me." That's what he will do. He'll put himself the one true God of Israel, one true God of the universe, and every other thing that is worshipped. I believe this will be the time when Babylon, religious Babylon, will be destroyed. Okay, Revelation 13:5. Here he is called the beast, and the second beast will be the false prophet. Verse 5. And there was given unto them a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 40 and 2 months. Midway breaks the agreement, and God allows him to continue for 3.5 years. That's 1,260 days, 30 days in a month with the Jewish reckoning. That means that he is already here for the first 42 months. And that's where we know for sure that the 70th week is, all weeks are 7 years. Revelation 13:8. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, the beast, Antichrist, whose names are not written in the book of life, the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Believers, your name is in the Lamb's book of life, and tribulation saints, they will not worship the Antichrist, they will not worship the dragon, Satan, they will not worship the image. Revelation 13:15. Now the he here is speaking of the second beast. Go back to verse 11. Later he's called the false prophet. Verse 15. And he, the false prophet, the second beast, had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. False prophet will demand that an image be made, and this, I guess, I believe the image of the beast will be a robot with AI programmed with the Antichrist voice. Recently, I've seen robots, they look human. If you cover up all their parts and dress them in human clothes, they look human. They speak like humans. And they even have different temperatures in the skin and eye movements. They look like humans. And my guess is that the image of the beast will be a robot programmed with the voice of the Antichrist, and says that he will give life to it. Now, I'll put life in quotation marks. Only God can give true life, but these things are human-like. And demand that the Antichrist be worshipped, and even that this image will be worshipped. Now I go to part 3. Well, where do we get the 75 days? Where do we get that? Back to Daniel 12, 11, and 12. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, that's midway, 3.5 years, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waiteth, and cometh to the 1,330 days. I'm sorry to expose you to a little bit of math today. 3.5 years is 1,260 days. But from this verse, from midway, there will be 1,290 days. That is a difference of 30 days. This is when Ron Rose thinks that the temple will be cleansed and the image of the Antichrist will be done away with. That is his thought. I believe it will be done in these 75 days, but don't know when. Okay, now the next verse. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 1,330 days, 1,335 days. Well, that's even more than the other figure. 1,335 minus 1,290 is 45 more days. So 30 plus 45 equals 75. You have 75 days. Now, what are we waiting on? Look at verse 12. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to this last period, 75 days after the end of the second coming, the end of the 7-year tribulation, 75 days. Well, what's the big event coming after the second coming of Jesus? The millennial reign. The reign of Jesus Christ. Blessed is he that waited. I believe these are the people, believers, who make it through the rapture and are not killed. Both Jews and Gentiles, there will be a few that will make it through 7 years and not be killed. And they will continue during the 1,000-year millennial reign living as humans. They won't get their new glorified body yet. We know that millennium, there will be people who will die. What talks about a person dying at 100 years age, and I believe it's in Isaiah, that be considered a tragedy. So they're going to live as humans, and they have children and have generations of people all the way through the 1,000 years. Meanwhile, the church, already raptured, will have our new glorified bodies. We'll talk about that later. So that's the event. 75 days, I believe, at the beginning of the 1,000-year millennial reign. Probably because there are things that need to be done before Jesus begins to reign. And that takes this number 4, events that may take place in the 75 days. Revelation 19:20. The Antichrist and false prophet are cast in the lake of fire. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worship his image. These both were cast alive in the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. Now, this one I believe could be actually at the very end of the 7 years and not in the 75 days. Ron Rhodes thinks it's going to be in 75 days. They're going to be cast in the lake of fire, which is the final destination of all non-believers. In Revelation, the sea gives up his stead, Hades gives up his stead, and I saw the dead on the great stand before God at the great white throne, and God judges them out of the books. These are the lost of all ages, and their names are not to be found written in the book of life, and they'll be cast into the lake of fire. That is the final destination. There may be a temporary place of torment called Hades or hell. That's what we usually call it. It also says at the very end, death and Hades will be cast in the lake of fire. So it is true there is a temporary place of torment, and by the way, all the wicked will be raised from the dead. Then it will be that the Antichrist and the false prophet will be the first two cast in the lake of fire. Well, with all their deeds, they deserve it. Number 2, the marriage supper of the Lamb. The big event, the big celebration, Revelation 19:9. And he saith unto me, right, blessed are they which are called the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he saith unto me, these are the true sayings of God. Again, the Jewish manner of wedding, the rapture is a picture of the Jewish ceremony and the way they did the wedding. You have the agreement. The husband-to-be goes to his father's house, builds a room, and they're separated in that time, about a year. And the father would say to the son, go get your bride, bring her home. And he would do that during the night, and they would come and they have a little celebration. Then you have 7 days honeymoon. And then after that, you have the great wedding celebration, the great wedding feast, the great wedding banquet. So I believe that the wedding feast of the Lamb, that is the church and Jesus, we're going to have that great celebration in this 75-day period. Not going to happen before the end of the 7-year tribulation. It's after. Number 3, the temple is cleansed by removing the abomination that desolates. It may be the image of the beast. It may be other things. No doubt the Antichrist will do terrible things to the temple. Through the ages in the Old Testament, the things, when Israel strayed from God, they put all kinds of strange gods and idols in the temple. It's awful what they did. And there's no telling what the Antichrist will do. In Ezekiel 40 through 48, there will be a millennial temple. So obviously it has to be cleansed, and it makes sense to do that in the 75 days. Number 4, Satan is bound for 1,000 years, Revelation 21 through 3. And I saw an angel come down from heaven having the key of the bottomless pit. I think the Greek word is abyss. And a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him in the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. Now obviously, before you're going to have a 1,000-year reign of Jesus, you're going to have the devil cast into the abyss and chained up for 1,000 years. I love verse 2. This has his names, the same one. The dragon, that old serpent. I recently said, the serpent that tempted Eve, that wasn't the devil. Pardon me, that was the devil. The dragon, the serpent, which is the devil and Satan, they're all one individual. A created being by God that is way inferior to God. Number 5, the Old Testament saints are resurrected, raised from the dead. They're not the church. Church is made up of Jews and Gentiles, and I believe it was born on the day of Pentecost. What about the Old Testament saints? This is just logical that they would be raised in 75 days. Isaiah 26:19. My dead men shall live, together with my dead body shall they arise. Awake and sing, ye that dwell in dust, for thy dew is as the dew of herbs, and the earth shall cast out the dead. Resurrection of the body. Now Daniel 12:2. And any of them that speak in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. So all people will be raised from the dead, the righteous and the unrighteous. This obviously is speaking the first part. Those who awake to everlasting life are the believers of the Old Testament. But the unbelievers, they're going to be raised, but to shame and everlasting contempt. But these are two separate events, and they're 1,000 years apart. The Old Testament saints are raised in the 75 days, and they will be with Jesus during the 1,000-year millennial reign. But the wicked dead, they will not be raised from the dead until the very end. After the millennial reign is over, Satan's last rebellion, easily defeated, and he's cast in the lake of fire forever and ever. And then they are raised from the dead, they are judged, and found guilty because they rejected God, they rejected Jesus, and will be in the lake of fire forever. Number 6, the tribulation saints are resurrected. Revelation 24. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which they had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark on their foreheads. These are obviously the tribulation saints. Those who came to faith in Jesus during the 7 years, came faith to Jesus. And these are those, many of those lost their lives. They did not receive his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. They lived. They have died. But they lived, that means they are raised from the dead. So here you have at least 2 resurrections of the just. You have one at the rapture. You have resurrection of the Old Testament saints. Well, maybe there's been 3. You have a resurrection of the tribulation saints who died and didn't make it through 7 years. So there you have 3 resurrections of the just. Now, I know there's a place that talks about, the next verse, the rest of the dead lived not until 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. There are 2 resurrections. Resurrection of the just, rapture, Old Testament saints, tribulation saints who died, and I believe there'll be another resurrection of the saints who lived during the 1,000-year millennial reign and died. So that would be 4 resurrections of the just. Only 1 resurrection of the dead. That's the second resurrection. You don't want to be in that number, brother and sister. You want to be in the first resurrection. Number 7, separating the surviving Gentiles. Matthew 25, 31 through 46. I'm not going to read this whole passage because of time. When the 7-year tribulation is over, there will be Jews still living who do not die. And I believe Paul says in Romans that all Israel will be saved. And I believe that takes care of them. But it also says in Zechariah that 2/3 of the Jews will die during the 7 years. Only 1/3 will make it, but they will be saved. All Israel will be saved. What about the Gentiles? There will be Gentiles who make it through the 7-year tribulation and don't die, both believers and non-believers. Verse 31, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. That is a second coming. Verse 32, and before him shall be gathered all nations, ethnic groups, non-Jews, Gentiles, and he shall separate them one from another as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. The sheep on his right hand, the good, and the goats, the bad, on the left hand. It really does say that here. Obviously, the scriptures, those who make it into heaven are those who are born again, receive Jesus as Lord, and those who do not make it are those who reject Jesus is Lord. But here he speaks in terms of what they have done. Then he says also to his right hand, man, come, you bless my Father, and inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was a stranger, you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then shall the righteous answer him, say, Lord, when saw we hungry, fed thee, thirsty, gave thee drink? When saw thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? Or when did see thee sick or in prison, came to thee? And the king shall answer and say unto them, verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you've done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, you've done it unto me. Now we have a different group. The brothers of Jesus. Who are the brothers of Jesus? They're not the sheep. They're not the goats. These are Jews. These are Jewish believers because of the mark of the beast. And they would not take the mark of the beast. They could not buy, they could not sell, they did not have food. So believers, Gentile believers, tribulation saints, who will help Jews, obviously other Christians, to try to make it through the 7 years, and some will make it and not die. Maybe they were preppers. Maybe they inherited prepping supplies from their parents, or had friends who were preppers and told them about the coming of the Lord, and they didn't make it until the 7-year tribulation. They have helped the Jewish people who would have starved to death, who needed help. They're in prison, they're hungry, they didn't have clothing because they couldn't buy or sell, because they didn't worship the beast or take the mark of the beast. And then those who didn't help, that represents those who are lost. And lost people, as a general rule, they're not generous. This is mine. You can't have it. If you want food, go out and work for it yourself. Not everybody, but a lot of times they're at it's about me, and this is mine, and I'm not going to help anyone else. And that's what these unbelieving Gentiles do. And Jesus says they will go away in everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal. Now we go to number 8, set up the governmental structure of the millennial reign of Jesus. The church and tribulation saints will help rule. 2 Timothy 2:12, if you suffer with him, you will reign with him. God's people, if we suffer with Jesus, we'll reign with him. Revelation 24-6. We've already looked at this before. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which did not worship the beast, neither his image, neither did receive his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned, ruled with Christ 1,000 years. Tribulation saints. But the rest of the dead lived not again 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection, the resurrection of the just. Blessed and holy is he that had part in the first resurrection. On such the second death have no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. Now obviously verse 4 speaks of tribulation saints. There's a possibility verse 6 could be speaking of the church. They'll be priests of God and will reign with him 1,000 years. We're already know we're going to reign with Jesus if we suffer with him. The parable of the talents. I'm not going to read that. Matthew 25:14-30. Jesus represented here going away, but he comes back to get his kingdom. And those who are fruitful, he tells them, two men who were faithful, you will rule over many things. They were equally faithful, and they got an equal commendation. You will rule over many things. That's Matthew 25:14-30. We have another one, the parable of the pounds, which is similar but different. Luke 19:11-27, he gives everyone a pound, and one takes the pound and gains 10, and he says to him, you're going to rule over 10 cities. Another takes the same amount and gains 5 pounds, and you will rule over 5 cities. There are greater rewards for greater deeds in the millennial reign. And the apostles will rule the 12 tribes of Israel. I'm not going to go there. Matthew 19:27-28. Peter said, man, Jesus, we've forsaken all to follow you. What did we get? You will sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. The apostles. Then Luke 22, 28 through 30, similar. That is a setting of the Last Supper. We're going to institute the Lord's Supper. Judas is gone. There are only 11 apostles, the true believing apostles. He says the same thing. You will rule with me over the 12 tribes of Israel. I believe that's why in Acts chapter 1 they chose Matthias to replace Judas because they needed a 12th apostle to rule the 12 tribes of Israel. 2 lessons. Number 1, the rapture is getting closer. I already mentioned data centers. Other bankers are pushing for digital currency, the flock cameras, the other cameras, smartphones, they're spying on you. I believe they can even spy on you through smart televisions. The rapture is getting close. You know, in the stores, when you see Halloween candy, that Thanksgiving is just around the bend. And then not long after that is Christmas, and not long after that is New Year's. When we see all these things become the past, this week, Japan, earthquake 7.1, not long ago. Venezuela, earthquakes, like I believe 7.3, earthquakes in different places. When you see these things become the past, lift up your heads, for your redemption is getting close. The rapture is getting closer. That means the 7-year tribulation will follow that pretty closely. And then the second coming, and then the millennial reign of Jesus, which we as believers will rule with him if we are faithful. So number 2, time is short. We who are believers work harder. There are those out there that don't know Jesus, and probably those that have never heard the message. That is our duty. Go in the world and preach the gospel to every created being. And if you see this Facebook, YouTube, and you don't know Jesus, trust Jesus. The times are going to get even worse than what they are. And you don't want to live through the 7-year tribulation. You want to give your heart to Jesus, be saved, and be born again. Be raptured out of this world and miss the 7-year tribulation. May God bless his word. Bo Ivy, would you pray for us?